Hello again, everyone. This is Randy, your sewing machine man, and we're looking at a HOBBYLOCK 776. And why are we looking at it? Well, it came in for service and it had some issues, and I was going to give you a quick rundown of how we solved the issues. Number one, this tension assembly right here was just spinning around and around. See, it's got there's a little slot in there with a little screw slot. You can put a screwdriver in there and you can spin that and tighten it down. But what happens most likely, and what happened in this one, is that there's a nut behind the plastic at the end of this little stud. And that nut, as you tighten this, it just turns around and around and around. So what you have to do is you have to take this front panel off to hold that nut with a wrench and then tighten this. And then you put it all back together. And of course, you can recalibrate this, whatever you want. I put them all on 3. And then I set them in 3, 3, 3, 3. Makes it easy for me and the customer. So to get this crazy panel off, you have to take off this screw. And you have to take off this screw and this screw. And the screw back there. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws in the back here to get this front panel to release. And it's a pain. Yeah, and you got to snip all your threads, and you got to thread it back up, and you got to take this off quite often, and that screw has to go back through there and has to be timed properly. So it can be a pain. And for all the folks that are going to give me a bunch of grief about what you didn't show us how to thread it, and you didn't run it, and you didn't do this, you didn't stand on your head, whatever. Folks, my business is not making videos. My business is fixing sewing machines. And every now and then, I'll have an extra 10 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever, to make a quick video to help out the folks out there that say, if you ever get one in and you're addressing that issue again, would you give me just a quick this and that? So I'm just trying to help people out here. You know, I'm not making any money off of this part here. The money I make is fixing these for these fine people. This is a good customer of mine. If this was an old brother, if it was a singer, some of these singers, you know, oh my gosh, the entry levels you get for, you know, $129, $199, I wouldn't be doing all this. But this one is made for PFAFF, HOBBYLOCK 776, made for PFAFF, which means on the back it'll say made in Japan. I mean, just made by JUKI. I'm just throwing that out there because all the cool, awesome sergers JUKI seems to make. And they make a lot for Baby Lock, and they make a lot for Elna, and they make them for Bernina. JUKI, fine purveyors of manufactured sergers. Now, this one here is very sweet, very smooth. For you folks who say you didn't even run it, look, I'm gonna run it just for you so you won't have a cerebral freaking hemorrhage. But, okay. So I replaced the knife. The knife is straightforward. You take the knife, take the screw off here. I always like to take it off at an angle, kick it out here, lock it in, and then take the screw off right there. One little screw. It's kind of hard to mess it up. How do you know if you need a knife? If it starts curling the thread underneath, and you pull the knife off and you go, look at that. Let me get my high dollar emphasis pointer here because this is a PowerPoint presentation. See how it's all worn right there along the edge? That's when you know it's time for a new knife. And it'll tell you when it's time when it stops cutting. That's the best way to know. But that's a double check to make sure it's not the bottom knife, which is on, this is carbide. And you'll go through probably 5 to 10 of these before you have to replace the bottom one, which is carbide. Because see, with carbide and the soft, you have a soft and a hard. Carbide being hard, this is soft. So this wears, the carbide just sits there and offers it the other cutting edge. So the carbide on the bottom, if you're going to replace these, you think, well, I'll get a set of knives. You may not need the bottom one unless you've hit a pen or you've hit something and took a chunk out of it. That's a different matter. But if it's smooth like this one is, and your knife has the shiny, you need a new knife. So you get one, put it on there, push it up, line it up, and away you go. Now, that was item 1. This is item 2. Item 3 was a very common thing. The daggone spool stands in the back. Now, this had one replaced already. This had broken off, and I guess somebody fixed that for her. And if you don't know my method of doing it, that quite often is the way they do it. They'll take a regular spool pen from a Kenmore or whatever, and it works. You know, you have to put this on here and make sure it doesn't flop around. But I prefer my method, which is over here, this one had broken off. She wanted me to replace it. And this is my method. You notice how my method looks pretty awesome? It looks like original. There's the original over here. Mine's actually better than the original, because mine, you drill from the bottom up through, and I get these spool pens. These are spool pens for, let's see, spool pens, Singer Touch and Sew 600 and 700. These are your horizontal spool pens that go up on the top, you know, like they're mounted on the back of a Touch and Sew. You get this guy here, and I order these, and I use them to drill a hole up through there. I will get what we commonly refer to as a drill bit, a 1/4-inch drill bit, and it's exactly the right size. And you drill it up through the center on the bottom, and you drill it with a slow drill, very slow, because you want to just get it started, you know, going through, very slow. And a good drill bit like this, it's Milwaukee, this will make short work with plastic, but you want to make sure it's straight. So you drill it, you take a bracket off, of course, and you have it in your hand, and you go through very slowly so you can adjust it so it goes through straight. So when you mount it, I epoxy mine from the bottom. I turn it upside down, and I hang it so it will dry quickly. When it's a fast drying epoxy, you know, you put it, you get the glue and the hardener, and you mix it together, you put it in there. So underneath here, and I redid his over on the side and underneath here too, because it was cracked. But one screw takes this whole thing off. Now, what I also did was I was going to show you real quick. When I have this off and I'm gluing it and hanging it upside down, I use various contraptions to hang it. I just put it through this hole over here, and I hung it upside down. These are shower curtain connectors. What do they call these? Shower curtain rings. Not nobody probably uses these anymore. They have the real nice sliding doors and stuff on their showers or the walk-ins. But you can find these at the dollar store, or I got this at a fabric store in Stephenville, at the old Deb's Flying Needle down there in Stephenville. And she had these on closeout, and I bought 5 packs of them because I use the heck out of these. And you hang it on there and hang it on something, hang it upside down, and you can use it to spray paint things and just hang it over something. You know, I hang it over my lamp or hang it over a bar, and just snap them together. And also, when I'm on my toolkit, my toolbox, my bobbin winder rings, I hang those on there. If you have washers, O-rings, anything, these are awesome. That's called a hack. I guess they call that a hack. But I've been doing this for years, and they're practically giving these things away, and people don't use them, but people are buying them because they're still there whenever I go to find them. So maybe we're using them for, you know, off-prescription uses, as they say. So now, last but not least, okay, that was number 3, but I did actually number 4. This thing on top, these are real bad about popping off up here. These things, they just pop right off because they just shove them down in there. And you can glue them, and it keeps pulling because there's no way to glue because it's so tight, it doesn't really surface it. So I drill a tiny little hole. See if I can get close enough here to show you this. I don't know if I can. Maybe move this closer. I put a pin there. I drill a tiny little hole there. When I say it's tiny, I'm using my smallest drill bit, and I drill right through the metal and the plastic, and I put a little pin in there. It's actually a tiny finishing nail is what it is. And I have a drawer of what we call, let's move this back so we can get an effect here. We call these tension release pins, which sometimes turns out to be finishing nails. They work just as well. And you just polish the ends of them off. Now on this one, when you put the pin through, you always make sure after you put the pin through, you finish it off with your Dremel tool so there's no rough edges sticking out. You can put the file on it or your emery cloth, whatever. You make sure there's no sharp edges because nobody likes to snag a finger and start bleeding, because that's something you want to make sure you don't make your customers do, is get injured. They don't care for that. And it doesn't work out well for everyone involved. So make sure that's smooth, because they'll always be grabbing this. to pull it up and down. So that can't have a sharp edge. So you put the pen through, drill the hole, put the pen, and then you finish it off so it's nice and smooth. So this is for a person who inquired. They say the next time you repair one of these crazy things, give us a synopsis of how it's done, drill up through the bottom, 1/4 inch, and order these from Brewer Sewing. And let's see, what's the part number there? 174391-656. And it's perfect for fixing these because they're plastic. And we always know that plastic's job is to break. And plastic never disappoints us. It always comes through. It always does its job. Plastic. Count on it. So, we got that done. We got the knife replaced. We got this fixed. And we got the pen up there on top. And for the folks that say, but you didn't show us how to thread it. Well, folks, you go to there, around there, around there, around here, around there. Some of them even put a threading diagram on the inside. Are you kidding me? That's pretty standard operating fare to have a threading diagram. And machines have had threading diagrams forever, but I can't encourage people enough to pull your threads up tight in your tension disc. You can have it in there, but if you don't have it pulled up tight, so when you pull down here on the bottom, you feel the tension. I get them in here, and all 4 are not pulled tight. All 4 are just sitting around the outside. They're just laying there. You have to pull them up between, there's tension disc in there. You have to pull them up tight between the tension discs like you're flossing. Get them nice and tight. And if you don't feel tension, like on this one here, if you don't feel tension, if you don't pull on that and feel resistance on it, your needles are going to be tighter than your loopers. But the top that you're going to pull, and you'll feel, if you don't feel that, you didn't pull it in between the daggone tension disc. You have to pull it up tight. It has to be coming in from here. It can't be coming from out there. You got to pull in, pull in, pull in, and you have to feel that it's tight. So if you want to thread your serger correctly, you can thread it 100 different times, and it won't work if you don't pull the thread up tight in between the daggone discs. Okay, so I'll showed you how to thread it. And I ran it, and oh boy, now you don't feel gypped that this guy just made you, like the one guy said, you want us to just take your word for it. Well, why would you do that? So, nice little serger, HOBBYLOCK 77, HOBBYLOCK, made for PFAFF, 776, made in Japan. Awesome little machine. They just usually need to be serviced. They need to be cleaned and oiled. Underneath, there's a lot of, there's a dry shaft under there with a lot of connectors, and they'll have to be oiled. These things will be locked up like they're welded. You got to take the bottom off. You got to service them. But when you get done, an awesome serger, HOBBYLOCK 776, made for PFAFF. Thanks.